Do you struggle when it comes to taking photographs of yourself? Self-portraiture can often be intimidating, especially if you've never done it before. But by the end of this video, you'll find out about the benefits of self-portraiture, the equipment used, as well as some useful tips to help you along the way. I'm Madison, and I'm an interdisciplinary visual artist. I'm also a classical violin student. On this channel, I talk about art and everything else I do. This is my self-portrait masterclass. Make sure you subscribe and ring the bell to get a notification anytime I post a new video. Now, on to the video. First, the proper definition. Most people use the terms self-portrait and selfie interchangeably, but these two barely have anything in common. The selfie is not a form of art, and it should never be confused with one. Selfies are often idealized, limited to the vanity of the person who's taking the photograph. Unfortunately, the selfie is nothing more than a sorry excuse to show your duck face in order to get more likes and followers on social media. Everything looks fake, and everything looks kitsch. The typical editing of a selfie involves an obscene amount of filters and effects. The face is blurred to the point where the skin texture is completely obliterated. This generally leads to a laughable result. A self-portrait is a photograph that involves planning and a clear intention. This kind of photograph is created for artistic purposes, and it has outstanding aesthetic qualities. If there is any kind of distortion, the distortion is there in order to support the message. Self-portraiture always has a solid concept. It exists in order to tell a story, or perhaps as a form of healing. Self-portraits do not involve any kind of idealization of the self. In fact, the way they work is they present the self as it is. The self-portrait can involve lots of creative makeup or props, but their purpose is not to beautify. Their purpose is to solidify the concept. If they accidentally end up being beautiful, then that kind of beauty is honest and has nothing to do with the clown-faced aesthetic promoted by the selfie. Comment below about your experience with self-portraits. I would like to hear. Self-portraiture enabled me to discover who I am. Without self-portraiture, there are numerous facets of my personality which I would have never discovered had I not been photographing myself extensively. You are always available to yourself as a subject, which means you could practice. This means your future photographs will be better, especially your portraits, and you will come up with new ideas and you will bring new skills to the table. Self-portraiture is a way in which you could get rid of the metaphoric loads imposed upon you by society. We always pretend, depending upon the environment we are in or the people we are around, but that's not really who we are. Self-portraiture can help you find your true self. We always try to fit in, but unfortunately, deep down inside, we would all love to be simply ourselves, uncensored. Self-portraiture is the place where you could find that kind of freedom. Self-portraiture can also increase your confidence. I wasn't always a confident person, but by photographing my face extensively, I learned to appreciate who I am. Becoming familiar with the grotesque further increased my confidence. Even under the most grotesque disguises, I feel great, while knowing all too well that my face under those disguises does not look particularly beautiful. However, I'm still confident enough to post those images online. Self-portraiture can also be used as a tool for healing and transformation. In fact, changing your appearance can have a radical effect upon your psychology, and it could even change your life. I find self-portraiture fascinating due to its versatility, and because makeup and props are enough to transform a face in spectacular ways. If used properly, they can also transform a spirit. Before starting out, you might feel intimidated. This is normal, many people feel uneasy before starting something for the first time. But once you repeat an activity enough times, eventually the uneasiness will fade away. Most people are rather unkind towards themselves. It's a good idea to just look at yourself as if you were a different person. Would you tell that person that they have a big nose, or they have uneven skin, or any other perceived imperfections you might find when you watch yourself in the mirror? I don't think so. Just use a mirror before taking any self-portraits. Look at yourself and try to really see your beauty. Personally, I use a mirror creatively. I like to have a mirror on my desk at all times, and this enables me to watch my face constantly and come up with new ideas. By developing this kind of relationship with my face, I can always come up with interesting ideas. Beauty is not the same all across the world. So, if you asked someone from France, from Iran, from Japan or Mauritania, if you would ask these people to define beauty, you would get wildly different answers. So, even if you do not believe you are beautiful, you most certainly are beautiful somewhere in this world. And this could be a good starting point to see yourself as beautiful, no matter where in the world you are. There's also another interesting point to make here. If you believe you are beautiful, people will treat you as if you are beautiful. I have seen this happening a lot of times. Even if you have a huge scar on your face, if you treat it as a trademark, people will believe that it's an asset and not a defect. You could see this with several unconventional models who talk about when they were bullied in school because of a thing that they perceived was a defect, but in fact, once they went into the modeling world, it became an asset. So no matter what kind of perceived flaws you have, the way you treat them is the way people will treat you. So, take your camera and start taking self-portraits. You won't regret it. You don't need much in order to take self-portraits. You could use a camera or you could use your phone. Personally, I prefer a camera. I have used a few cameras throughout my career, but I couldn't really recommend any cameras because two of them are rather similar, and the other one I just wouldn't recommend. So the first one was an Olympus VE130, and it was decent, but it wasn't really great because it only had 5 megapixels, so the quality wasn't that good. After that, I used a Canon EOS 350, and that was a nice camera, but I went to university where I needed to record video, so I had to have a camera that could record video. And this is why, right now, I use a Canon EOS 60D. I love this camera because it has a flip screen, and this is a very useful asset in terms of self-portraits. In terms of lenses, I use the 18-55 my camera came with. So, there are no fancy lenses. This is optional, but you might want to invest in a tripod. There are tripods available in specialized stores. You could find tripods for phones and tripods for cameras. My tripod is an Oben, and the model is AC1310. Generally, I take my self-portraits simply with my camera in my hand, although there are situations where a tripod is necessary. You also need photo editing software. On my computer, I use Photoshop to edit my photos, and Photoscape because it has a nice battery size function. On my phone, I use Snapseed. I also use Square in Pic because my photos are vertical or horizontal, and I simply do not want to crop them to the square format Instagram requires. Now I'm going to talk about why a camera is better than a phone. Besides the sensor and the quality and all of that, that's something I'm going to skip for now. But what's important is that the camera has a RAW function, and this function actually captures all of the information. That's really interesting because in this way you could edit non-destructively. And if something is too white or too black, you could actually recover all of those details. On the other hand, if you shot only in JPEG, you would have a burnt image, and there's nothing you could do to recover all of that white or black, those burnt out portions of the image. During a shoot, if possible, it is best to have a mirror, and if it is impossible to have a mirror, then at least enlist a friend to witness your process. Because if there's anything wrong, if for instance a strand of hair is rogue, or perhaps you have any kind of makeup mishap, and if you don't catch it at the right time, then you will have to edit it from hundreds of photos, and that will be just a huge time waster. All of this could have been avoided entirely if you would have just looked carefully and made sure there's no mistake before pressing the shutter button. And it happened to me too. It happened, and I was first to edit hundreds of photos with the same mistake. And of course I did lose some of the photos because positioning is also important, and some of those photos simply couldn't be recovered. No matter the effort I spent in trying to edit out the mistake from some of them, they were simply lost causes. Just like for anything in life, you need practice. And as I learned while studying classical violin as an adult, even though my job is an artist, but, well, I love music too, I learned that wrong practice can lead to bad habits, and you must be mindful of this in any kind of art form you practice, including photography. What I'm trying to say is that you have to be careful about the way you take photographs, as well as the way you edit photographs. The goal is to take photographs that do not need much post-processing. In fact, the least you edit, the better the outcome. You don't want unnatural results, you want a photograph that speaks for itself. It's really important that people see the photograph and not the editing. Keep that in mind. Before self-portraiture, I tried my best to please society. After self-portraiture, I try my best to please myself. Experimenting with my face is highly satisfying. And since I shaved my head, I just gained some new real estate to experiment there as well. So this is done for artistic purposes, in case you were wondering. Art is a tool that can be used to carve one's life, and life can thus become an art form in itself. I love transforming my face and applying various things to my face and head. If it looks interesting, if it will not kill or injure me, and if it is not disgusting, it will end up on my face or head sooner or later. I would love to hear about your experience with self-portraits, and if you liked this video, please subscribe and ring the bell. Hope you have a wonderful day, and hope you take lots of self-portraits right after watching this video. See you in the next.